No,
Lead generation forms are one-click form submission experiences that allow prospective customers to convert 5 times higher than traditional landing page forms, and we're giving it to you entirely for free.
Wow. Is that an email? Can you share your screen?
Yeah, there we go. Last week we shared more than 20,000 product pages are listed on LinkedIn. Now I know we're all in services and they don't have services pages yet. It has to be a physical product. And I think they also include like SaaS services and stuff like that. But
this is huge.
Yeah, but a free one-click lead gen form for product pages.
Oh my gosh, this is like really a big deal. Monty, do you have any pages that have product pages?
I am going to be setting one up for my crab cake company that I work with. So this will be big for them. That's the only one though.
Wow. I mean, there's a SaaS company we work with. We've been more on the sales enablement side, so we don't really do much with the company page, but I am really curious to see how many people end up viewing the company and then product page because of what our sales associates are doing, and then fill out a form there. I don't have any guess or clue what the actual, rate would be, but I'm really curious.
Yeah.
Really, really curious. I definitely want to revisit this here another time.
And just out of curiosity, a service is a product. So you're saying it has to be a physical product?
Yes. They have said that, consulting and other, even like home services, that services are not supposed to be on product pages. And I'm not sure how they're controlling it, but
yeah, that's my question, is how would they know?
Yeah.
They know they're watching you right now.
Yeah.
So would things like training courses or membership programs be considered a product?
I think I'm not sure, but I'd have to, I don't recall the exact guidelines. I know they definitely said that a SaaS software subscription was considered a product. So
let's go to
at one point they were actually reviewing them. So
let's go down this bunny trail here for a minute, because I feel like this has implications. I did, just for kicks and giggles, some product reviews. Like I did HubSpot, I did Sales Nav.
I'll also say, while I've been dubious about how much that's actually going to get utilized directly within LinkedIn, I gotta think it's an interesting SEO play. Not sure how well, you'd have to have some, if you have 50 different products, you got to figure out what's the, the value of setting all that up relative to the, not how viable that is for a small business, but if you've only got 3 or 4, then, it's kind of a no-brainer.
For sure. I want to see the lead form. I wonder if they've got it pull up anywhere here.
But I see that as a tie-in. Like you're seeing or you're hearing about all these things that they're going to introduce, like the Clubhouse a la, so it's about keeping them on the platform. Then you got Microsoft Dynamics 365 and the integration of Sales Navigator, and it just seems like a long-term roadmap or play to have everything integrated so you stay on the platform.
Well, okay, so man, this really ties in with what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, where who wants the lead form figured out? Or sorry, who wants the lead form filled out? Does the sales team want the lead form filled out? Yes. Does the marketing team want the lead form filled out? Yes. Everybody's going to want it filled out.
I'll sign it.
You just need to send the people there and then take action when it's filled out. Hey, does anybody know when the lead form is filled out, how are you notified?
That's a good question. Who owns the data? Do you get to import it into your system?
I don't know. I know that there's some Zapier integrations and probably with other stuff as well for lead forms, but that's usually through paid campaigns. I'm not sure about if when someone fills out the lead form, I'm assuming someone gets an email notification.
Exactly. We use Zapier and then our clients just get an email. There's a new lead.
And then you get an email notification that a form has been submitted. Do you choose in the form settings who receives the email, or is it the page admin?
No, we do it.
And is that done through Zapier then?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
When you use HubSpot, I think you can connect the lead gen form with HubSpot. So if someone fills out the lead gen, and it automatically gets into HubSpot.
got it. Got it. So you could do, I mean, HubSpot is one CRM option. If you're using Zapier, the workflow would be submit the lead form, create the contact, schedule a task, or maybe something automated. But if it's a warm lead, you probably would want it to be super automated. Probably want to customize a little bit. So workflow, submit it. The email notification goes out. The sales associate is queued up a task. And then that task could include sending an email, an in-mail,
Yeah.
an invite, or whatever.
Usually they just call them.
Just call them.
Mm-hmm.
Is phone required or optional? Depends on how you want to set it up.
Yeah. It depends. Like most of our clients just want the phone number, and then they just call them like within, I think, 48 hours.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing paid, I could see no phone number being more clicks because it's an easier conversion, but probably the potential that they're going to ghost you is higher, right?
Exactly.
So they want to do required phone so that it's more qualified, even though they might pay a couple times more.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. I really want to see, Scott, thanks for reading that email. I really want to see what the lead form looks like when it goes live on product pages. I don't see it anywhere on here. Anybody know any other product pages that we could dive into? I mean, if we're not seeing it on a LinkedIn one, it's probably not rolled out yet. Campaign manager, skill, or more. Did they give you any screenshots in that, Scott? That you know?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So it's probably just coming down the road.
I think this is interesting because, I know I've heard some people talk about Zapier integrations, but you've got this lead form. Now, Microsoft also has their own automation called Power Desktop or something like that. And it's pretty powerful. And it's, you don't have to know how to code. You just drag and drop. And I saw a demo of it once. So I'm looking at this as everything's starting to come into play, where it's going to be one ecosystem between Microsoft and LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the way they're going to go. Microsoft is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. They just with the creating a product page. Does anybody know here how you can you request to create a product page, or is it just automatic? Anybody know? I haven't seen any ability to do that.
Yeah, Isaac. I actually have a client an attorney who has some product. We created her product. She had to put in an application. And within 48 hours, she got approved. Now she only had one product, but they approved it. So I guess the thinking there is that if you have more than one product, in theory at least, that's where you would use product pages. But she had to apply and then was approved within 48 hours.
Vivica, would you be willing to tell us what were the questions that you had to fill out for the product application?
Yeah, I wish I knew. She did not share that with me. We just didn't. We just know that she told me she was approved, and so I don't know exactly what those questions are. I can certainly ask her. I'm sure she'd share with me what that is. I'm assuming it's not quite as extensive as the application for LinkedIn Live, but not quite sure. I'll ask her and get back to you by next week if you like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be a big gold rush to set up your product pages, just like there was with Google My Business, just with the potential for reviews, real estate, and search, everything. I'm also expecting if you do anything related to LinkedIn, they'll probably say, sorry, Isaac, you can't have a product about LinkedIn at all. Funny enough, I've seen a number of company pages that straight up say that they do LinkedIn automation. They're still up. Whatever, it is what it is. Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay, so can you recap what you emailed me about? Because this is, I think, a super critical thing for everyone here, whether you're an agency owner, do it yourself. It's a really good talking point.
All right. So basically the high level question is, what's the best practice for finding the right person to talk to in a bigger company? So if it's not the CEO you want to talk to and you actually don't really know what's the best practice. And the concrete situation here is that we have a client in the IoT space, like the industry 4.0. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's about like machines that can talk to each other. So, and they're doing consulting and implementation in this area. And they're looking mainly for the CDO, CIO position. So people who are in the like IT department of a company, but also handling projects concerning digitization of the production and manufacturing. So, and there are a couple of titles like head of smart factory, head of digitization, project manager, this and this. And we found that, well, we find a couple of leads in one company. And my question was, so far we have targeted the top dogs, like the C-level people, but it seems that either our messaging is off or maybe they're too busy to reply, and we get this type of client connected, but then it gets silent. So our follow-up messages probably suck. I don't know. And my proposal was to target also the lower level, the lower tier people, like the project managers and maybe assistants of these guys. But how to do it in a way that, if these people talk to each other, how to make the messaging so that, if they say, okay, now they're targeting us all with the same message, what would be the good way to do this?
Yeah. So I think there are a couple things going on here, and feel free everyone to chime in. But big summary is, you have a service or product you want to sell. It's a bigger company. You could potentially talk to multiple titles. The higher in the org chart, the less likely someone is to engage, but it could be a shorter buying cycle, or the decision process is faster. So less engagement, faster decision. Or you could go farther down the org chart, talk to the directors, that's lower level. The engagement is going to be higher. They don't make the decisions. So then you have to rely on them in their day-to-day activity at their job to be your internal cheerleader champion, to actually bring it in real life to the decision maker and have a strong enough pull in the company to get you the meeting with the person you want to talk to anyway. So what do you do? Right? What do you do? That's Dimitri's question. What is everybody's thoughts here?
How big is the company?
Well, this particular is roughly a couple of thousand people, like 5,000 maybe.
What's the title you're trying to get a hold of?
CDO and CIO.
From my experience in companies that size, you never get in front of those people because they are, excuse me, those are ultimately not the people that make the decisions. Those people rely on their teams beneath them to make those decisions. So they collectively make the decision and then bring it to the CEO. CEO's overall function is basically vision and making sure that the company's going this way. So I would probably start looking into some of their teams that you connect with to find out which within those groups. Like we had a project with a company that I worked with for AT&T, and if we tried to get a hold of CEO, you'd never do that. So, this was a real estate deal that we were looking at. So they have an internal real estate department because those companies all have such huge But even within that, you can't get in front of the director of real estate. So they have groups within groups. So you probably have to figure out how to fish around to find which group is going to be ultimately the decision maker for what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I worked at General Motors for 3 years, and actually the director, the director level or even senior manager level was generally the decision maker. There was obviously purchasing and everything else that goes on, but yes, the CTO and the CTO and even their immediate reports. Well, the CTO is I mean, they manage portfolio level strategy. They don't get involved in individual purchasing decisions, period. I mean, they might get involved at the level of, we're going to make the strategic decision to align with IBM or Microsoft or, whatever, but at the individual vendor level, it's the director is the decision maker. They've got a committee. They've got a whole committee that's involved as well in any kind of product assessment. But yeah, so I would say aim lower.
And another thing too, a company of 5,000 people, they're going to have a procurement department. So somewhere in your sales process, it's going to be another decision person. So you might want to, sort of do a dual prong with whoever the decision maker you figure out, plus procurement. Sometimes procurement may have something ready to go that makes it quite easy. So it's just developing those partnerships with those people.
If I can chime in on this, this is going back a few years ago, but it was a $10 million win for me. I used to work at an agency, and we were trying to get the Disney account, and I was running into all sorts of roadblocks. Felt like the offer that we had was a pretty compelling offer, and if it just got to the right person to listen, and it needed to be a senior level person. So I went through the procurement process. I went through VP processes, what have you, and we're just getting roadblocks. So what I did was I wrote a letter, and this was a financial impact. And I wanted to get, so I said, you know what, I'm going to send this letter to Al Weiss, who was the president of Walt Disney World at the particular time. And I went and I got the latest annual report of Walt Disney, which I can see, if you look at any public annual report, it's a letter from the CEO, right? And it's kind of, hey, this division, this and that, So I just plucked out all the things that he said were going to be what they're going to do for the next year. I took that information, I regurgitated, I put it in my letter, and I showed him how what I am offering is going to impact their shareholders, impact their guests, which they call it, and impact relationships among. So I sent that via FedEx. I also had a cutout of me made and delivered that. And I knew when it was going to get delivered. Within 24 hours of that delivery, I got a call from the executive vice president of procurement. It's the highest level you can get in procurement. And they were said that, what a brilliant idea. They wanted to hear more about the presentation, set up a meeting. I went out to Disney. I had an audience, and it landed me $10 million account. So to me, you work both sides. You work both sides. At the end of the day, I mean, you guys are business owners, and you think, what's going to impact? I either want to increase revenue or I want to decrease cost. That's the only way that you add more money to the bottom line. Or if you're a publicly traded company, you're adding shareholder value, is you're showing shareholders, hey, this is what we're doing. You're either increasing prices, right? Or you're decreasing cost, or you're innovating something. So I just thought I would share that story. attacked from both sides.
Yeah.
And folks, and that's how you do big game hunting. Hey, thanks for sharing that story, because when that CEO passes on that letter, whoever he passes that letter on, what did he do, John?
Oh, it was instantaneous. I mean, I got the call within 24 hours. There was, it was a shot in the dark. I knew it was just, okay, load up my shotgun, shoot it, and hope it lands somewhere. And, but at that point, nothing else was working. But I needed the right ears and the right eyes to see and hear what I'm trying to communicate. And so, yeah, that was a $10 million deal, which was a $400,000 a year income boost to me. And so, yeah, it was, I don't have that anymore. Al moved on, and things change, but everything changes. But I would tell you, for nearly a decade, it was a fun ride.
That's awesome, John.
Yeah.
Dimitri, I think that the short summary here is, if your wheelhouse is LinkedIn, and that's the channel that you have readily available, LinkedIn, maybe email, that's the channel you have readily available for your sales and marketing process and funnel, you probably want to aim lower. If you have the resources to do something more out of the box, not as scalable, but like John was just describing, shoot for the moon, shoot for higher. But on LinkedIn specifically, I think you probably want to go a little bit lower. And when you go lower in the org chart, this is what we've learned over the years, is whoever you're working with, they have to have the systems and the processes to follow through on whatever the offer is to the lower level, to make sure it goes all the way to the top. So does that make sense? So they have to, if you're going for like the director or VP level, they're lower, they have to really be your internal champion. So how do you do that? Like, how do you get them to know, like, and trust you? What is the context? Is it a group meeting like this? Is it a one-on-one? What is it? I don't know. They have to have something. There's so many different things you could do, but they have to have that set up to go from, I really like this product, this company, enough to take it to my boss. And if your client doesn't have the resources to move the needle after the director or the VP gets it, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And so we in the past have done a number of projects where we're targeting the CTO, CIO, and same thing here. It's like hardly any nibbles. They might be a fast decision, but hardly any nibbles. We talked to a really large international company, and they were like, you know what, let's not do CTO, let's not do CIO, let's go for the more like the engineer level, and have an engineer talk to the engineers about what it's like in the trenches. That campaign, which we're still running, has the highest conversion rates we have ever had, ever. But it took them a while to figure out how to put together internally the pieces so that they could make sure that the engineers brought the product, so there's product awareness, to their team and their boss when purchase time happens. And they have to be okay in that context with like a 6 months wait, a year wait. And big companies with expensive services, they get that. It's 6, 12-month thing sometimes, but that's been our experience. So just if you decide to switch targeting, make sure that the company you're working with has the ability to execute.
Got it.
Going from the lower person, because that's not your responsibility. The conversation's left LinkedIn. We've even tried going, connecting with the director VP, and then after they're connecting with their boss. And it just seems like we still don't get their attention. You have to rely on them doing it in person.
Yeah, that could be a roadblock, because the company I'm working with is not really, it's not a company, it's like a research institute, so they don't have a sales team. The research people are doing sales themselves, so they need to sell some volume of projects, of consulting projects, and of course they don't like it. They're all engineers, they don't like selling, so that's why I thought maybe a good idea to even sell them like sales training on top. But
Yeah.
now I see this was maybe a bit bad idea because it's all on my company now to do this heavy lifting. We don't get any support from the sales team because there is none. Yeah, lessons learned here.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. In the past, we've just lost a client because it's like their ROI isn't there. And then that forced us to go, all right, let's shoot lower, get more conversions, but only work with companies that have the ability, have the sales team set up to be able to follow through. Otherwise, it's just out of your control. Like you said, it's out of your control. They don't have a sales team. It's not your fault. That's where they're at. And if you don't have the ability to give them a virtual sales team, what if, Dimitri, what if you found a partnership with a company that does like a outsourced chief sales officer? There are lots, it's a whole world.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't thought about it.
But of course you would have to get a percentage, right? They would make your job easier. They'd make your job easier.
Yeah.
You could keep the client and they get to close more.
Sounds like there might be too many hands in that after all.
Could be. Well, it sounds like there's actually not enough hands right now. I don't know. All right. That's a good thing. And it's a wrestle that everybody that owns an agency has to wrestle through. You wrestle through it if you already took the client on, not realizing it, or you wrestle through it during your sales qualification process. Right? I see some smirks from people that learned the hard way like me. All right, cool. So let's switch gears here for the main thing that I want to talk about. And before I do, this is a perfect segue. Actually, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to read a quote from Colin something here at Salesforce, because this goes into the mapping that I'm going to get into. So this is Colin, I forget his last name, is at Salesforce. And this is his quote. He said, "We found a great study on B2b buying behavior." I'm going to read this slow because I really want it to sink in. I really want this to sink in. Showing that 2/3 of the time, okay, that's 66% of the time, when a business decision maker purchased a software, they already had a brand in mind. That is like really huge for considering your overall sales and marketing strategy and putting the value in the brand awareness even before sales enablement, right? So 2/3, they already had a brand in mind, and 94, that might as well be 100%. 94% of the time, the buyer ends up sticking with that brand. That is so huge. So that tells me, geez, the money is largely in them just knowing who you are and knowing what you do for when it's time for them to buy. Of course, you have to stay top of mind, XYZ. 94% of the time, they stuck with a brand. So if you're not part of the original consideration set, there's no way you're getting bought. I thought that was such a great thing. And Dimitri, that's what I said. I feel like it's a potential segue here too, is, it might be a little bit different as far as the industry that they're talking about, but it comes down to, are you part of the original consideration set? Do they already know who you are? Does the team, the directors, the VP know who you are enough to have brought up your brand name to their team so that when the consideration happens, you're on the docket?
That's on the plus side. It's like without revealing too much, it's one of the Fraunhofer institutes. I don't know if you're familiar with that name. It's like a big research organization all over the world. So they are well known everywhere. So in Germany, everybody knows who Fraunhofer is.
That's awesome. Okay. Now moving on after I read that. So this is what I've been geeking out on. And yes, this is largely our workflow. And what I'm wanting to do is I'm not afraid to share our workflow. And I'm thinking we need to be having a larger picture to make what we've historically been strong at even stronger. So, over the years, you learn if you're doing LinkedIn sales and you're relying heavily on engaging directly with prospects, you realize, geez, you've got to eventually get into email. It just is going to happen if you want to make it go farther. And then you go, well, geez, we need to get into content marketing because it makes sales enablement go farther, which is what Monty talked about last week. There's just more stuff to do. It all helps out. And then, like, what about the website, right? People are going to go to the website. People, whether your sales team sends them there or they go here and then here, they're all so connected that I want to have mapped out the whole journey so that we can, number one, be able to offer it as a service so that I can make more money. Number two, make sure there are no holes or gaps. And then number three, figure out how to track it all in one place, right? Because if you're a service provider, one of the hardest things to do is to put all these data points together and provide it in one dashboard for your clients without it being an insane time suck for you. Oh yeah, and then the one trick ponies get shot, right? So if you're only doing sales enablement right now, I actually had a meeting with a company this week, and they want to leave their current service provider for one reason: they don't do email. That one trick pony just had its last show, boys and girls. So anyways, that's my kind of soapbox. So here, let me give you a quick rundown. And then what I want to do as a group is, kind of poke holes in what is missing. I don't want to get too in the weeds as far as, what a workflow looks like, but what points of entry, what points of entry should we add, that kind of thing. So you've got the sales enablement, which in my mind, that's just fancy lingo for you find your audience on LinkedIn and engage with them one-on-one, right? So you've got we scrape the profile, grab the company domain so that we can get the email, and that kind of queues up everything for later. We'll do a follow. We'll manually engage with appropriate content before inviting. So there's a view, there's a follow, there's engagement. Then we'll wait and we'll send an invite. If the invite is not accepted, we want to move that to email, right? Let's keep going down this workflow. If the invite is accepted, of course, we're going to do more content engagement. This is their content. We want to do the message sequence. If they are talking, they should be qualified. If they're qualified, ready to buy, boom, we want to put them into our CRM and sales pipeline. If they're not ready to buy, we want to stay top of mind. And there's a whole world in there, right? So if they're not talking, or they don't accept the invite, we want to move them both to email. So in my mind, this is a sales email sequence, not email marketing, because this is more conversational. It's not a newsletter. They didn't opt into anything. It's supposed to be starting a conversation. If they talk, right? So this is assuming that they talk, then they're either going to say like, yes, we're ready to buy now, and they convert and they go to your CRM, or they're not ready to buy, and you can maybe opt them into email marketing. And this is less salesy, less conversational, more for top of mind and nurturing. And then there's the process again where they could convert. And I suppose I could add a couple of things here, what it looks like when they convert from email to your CRM. So it could be they straight up reply, could be they go to the website, could be they talk to whoever they connected with on LinkedIn, could be a number of things there, right? And then you've got the content marketing side of things, which I'm sure Monty, go easy on me because I oversimplify this because this is where I don't know hardly anything. But you've got the company page content, which is engaged with and shared by employees. And then from there, it goes out to the whole world. Ideally, your prospects engage with the content either at the company page level or the employee level. You find find the prospect, so they should be, based on their profile, look like they're potentially qualified. If they engage with that content, then we like, tag, reply, just to capture their attention, send the invite, and then kind of go through the whole workflow. And you could even do the, maybe just an in-mail, right? You could do in-mail. I'm just going to add that No, for fun. Right. So like tag reply, just to grab their attention, send an invite or maybe an in-mail. I don't know that I would try to do an email finder and then send it directly. Maybe. I don't know if that scales well. Or they might go all the way from engaging with your content. They might go to, well, we could even do this now. If there's going to be a lead form on here, it could be a company page lead form, right?
Yeah, Isaac, can we jump in while you're, or do you want to flow through first?
No, you can go. If I start spelling things all goofy, I can't handle it, but try.
Just before you go any further, do you ever, I mean, are you getting stuck on the employee engagement? I mean, in large companies, that's usually a kind of a factor, or do you have a pretty good built-in system to engage employees?
Here, let's talk about that in just a minute. That's a really good question. So the person could engage with the content. They might go to your company page and fill out a lead form, or they might go to your company page and then jump right over to your website. Oh, sorry, let's do this because let's do this. And then let's do the lead form, right?
Hey, Isaac, when you say lead form, are you talking about more of a traditional landing page, which would be a more direct link to a specific part of your company page?
When we're talking about lead forms, Bob, you weren't here when we first started, right? There's
sorry,
no, it's okay. No, it's totally cool. There's something called a lead form, which is like a contact form baked into LinkedIn that they're adding to product pages. Yeah. So someone could, if you have that type of, right now it's a product page, lead forms are coming out. Scott got an email about it. They can fill out a form directly there without leaving LinkedIn, or they could go to your website and basically do the same thing. View website. Yep.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. That's a good question. And convert and submit form, right? Something like that. And then from there, you could do, I guess it depends on what the form is. I just had this connected to email, but it could be this too, right? It might trigger a CRM. Where are we going to go here? It could go all the way down there, right? Depending on what they're submitting. You could have a download PDF or something that's way more high funnel where they go into email marketing, or it could be, please contact me now. Different workflow, right? Different lead scoring, different workflow. And then all roads should lead to acquisition. Could also, I didn't talk about this, if you have the systems in play, sometimes your prospects will send you an invite. Sometimes a prospect will follow you, like the salesperson you're talking to, or they might follow the company page, right, Monty? Company page followers are you can grab that, right? So if someone follows the company page and they look like they're a prospect, we can put them through the same process, right? Right. Vivica, with your question here about how do you get the employees to engage with content, right, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I just heard a podcast I was going to share with you, but so yeah. How do you contend with that?
That'd actually be Monty's wheelhouse. You were here last week, right, Vivica? Were you here last week? So Vivica, sorry, did I lose you?
There we go.
So getting the team to engage with the material, that's something that we have not done a lot in the past, but Monty last week was sharing on that. And Monty, are you on?
Yeah.
What would you advise someone where if they're wanting to make sure that this piece is not weak? Do you have any advice that we could give our clients if there's resistance to this, or it's just weak in follow through?
Think of the first, it has to start at the leadership level. You have to have leadership buy-in, but then think first of the business development teams. Any people in the sales teams, it's worth their effort to do so. It builds their own trust, expertise, and authority to share that content. Secondly, it starts, or thirdly, I should say, then it goes to the marketing team. And the marketing team has to be able to develop content that's engaging for the employees to be able to share. If it's not engageable and it's just simply kicking out a bunch of website content, then nobody's going to share it. Nobody's going to want to have it on their personal profiles. It's got to be content that they can share and create and make their own.
So that's really interesting, Monty, because I just listened to an interview with the other Viveka von Rosen, was interviewed by Andy Foote. And she was asked that specifically. And I think you guys are saying about the same thing, but she was talking about very high level, sophisticated gamification as an incentive to employees. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as a leadership level, from the leadership level, if they understand the importance of why you do this, then yes, I totally believe you can create incentive programs for your employees to do it based on, you know, the number of times they share, how they're engaged, so on and so forth. But, you know, unfortunately, most companies are resistant to social media still for their employees. Yeah. And you have to overcome that mindset first, and you have to be able to show them a very clear analytical reason, you know, based on numbers, that you can show them why they should be engaging in this and allowing their employees to engage.
All right, thank you.
There's also, we were just having a conversation with this with one of our clients here this week, where we have, how can I say this shortly? There's an employee transitioning out, bringing someone new in. And part of the hesitation on the employer's end is a bit justified, because it's like they're investing financially in an employee who might come and go. And so I feel like, from my experience in the conversation, right or wrong, that has been one of the mental obstacles, is I'm spending money on a person to build their own following, to build their own network, in our case as well, right? What happens when they leave? We lose our whole investment. And I think that to a degree that's justified, and which is why you should also make sure that all roads point back to company page content as well. But I think that that's been one obstacle we've encountered.
I think another issue is that companies are afraid to lose their own employees.
Yeah, for sure.
People will, you know, then be picked off by headhunters and stuff like that. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, you know, culture is important. They have to define a culture where people want to stay. So that's largely an internal issue. But then the benefits of doing this far outweigh the risk of any kind of employees' issues, because one, your employees are your number one brand ambassadors. If your employees aren't out there talking and touting how great the company is and the brand is, then you've got a problem anyway. So this is a way to basically incentivize that and to allow them in some ways to kind of have a role in the company growth besides their own job. So it's, like I said last week, it's a rising tide floats all boats. And as long as leadership understands the risk to rewards, they'll see that the rewards far outweigh the risk.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back, I mean, we're almost backing into business philosophy. I mean, how do you incentivize? Are you hitting them with a hammer, or are you giving them a carrot and incentivizing? And I find that especially with the millennials in the law firms that I work with, you know, the managing partners are looking at these much younger associates. They're not incentivized by the same motivations that an older generation was. They're looking for, I mean, they want to feel satisfied. They want to feel they have, you know, a quality work environment. It's not quite the same carrots out there, but that kind of goes back into, you know, how are we going to treat our employees, you know, and that's changed over the last 2 decades, certainly. So thanks, Monty.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You've also got the option to do paid, right? So you can do paid, and then even within paid, there are two. I mean, you could do paid content, or you can do paid in-mail, where you do the messaging campaign. I feel like those are separate enough to justify being in totally separate places.
I do think one thing you need to add in there, Isaac, would be paid ads. You know, because you've got LinkedIn ads that you can do for your products and services too. don't know if you want to put that on the sales enablement side or the content marketing side, but
Well, I think it should be both, honestly. I think so. I
Yeah.
think that there's, or maybe we
because
should
you
put
can
it,
you can run ads just to get followers to your company page,
yeah.
which is a great way to do it. I mean, it's expensive, but yeah, from both content side and the sales side, it should probably be in there.
Yep. So I do like paid. What is the official term for when you do the messaging campaign?
I think it's called sponsored post.
No, sponsored posts is over here, more related to content.
So isn't it paid in mail then?
Paid messaging campaigns.
Those are the in-mails, yeah.
Yeah, because it's more than in-mail. They've got the dynamic response where you basically build out a chat bot. So whatever they click, a pre-populated message goes, and then so it's a whole different type of campaign. That's all under paid, right? So let's do this. Let's do paid. Oh, I've got the 2016 keyboard and it sucks so bad. It's so sticky. Yeah, that's good. So then the sponsor content could go. Did Monty, should employees share sponsored? Is that a thing? Can they? No?
No, I don't think so. You're talking about the ads,
Yeah.
the sponsored content. There's no reason to. I mean,
Doesn't make it go farther.
No.
Okay. And then I feel like I'm not sure where I'd want to draw a line to this because it would be more like reply. I'm not sure. I need to make the canvas bigger. So paid advertising, where else do y'all feel like there's a, like, give me your thoughts. What could we build out? What are common places that you see are weak, in the big picture?
Are you mostly wanting to focus just on LinkedIn?
I think there's a point where you can add too many services and then it becomes like a project management pain in the butt, right? So I think
my only thought where I was going with it was channel distribution on your content marketing, but you can just leave it as LinkedIn. That's probably fine.
Yeah. But if you start with LinkedIn, I think you can easily get there. You could even build out let's do this. You could do, like, if there's a website visit, you could do a lookalike audience, right? Or remarketing audience. Could create lookalike, right? And that can be from, yeah, that's the whole thing. You can do this from new connections. You can do this from website visits, from email opt-ins. It's a whole nother thing you can build out here from starting on LinkedIn. I'm not sure where, like I said, I think the canvas needs to get a little bit bigger.
One of the things you can do on this that would be helpful is to identify the things that you can automate and the things by color, right? You can colorize the things that you can automate and the things that are manual.
Yep, totally. I don't want to do that right here because it'd be boring for everyone, but yeah, absolutely. Oh, another thing that you could do too is lead scoring, right? Which is what we talked about. If you have the big picture, you can associate a lead score with all these different actions when they're taken. So, I mean, if someone fills out a company page lead form and it goes into your CRM, that should be a lot of points on your lead score. If someone just opts into a PDF download, should be less points. If somebody responds to an email, it gets added to a workflow in your CRM. This should be a lot of points. And you can do all kinds of stuff with that data, not just with taking action in a sales context, but with like figuring out what do we need to make, where should we spend more money, you know?
Hey, Isaac, is there a unified call to action, or are there CTA points you'd want to mark in the engagement process?
I think there are a ton of different CTAs and offers in the whole journey. I mean, yeah, think about just the context. If you're doing paid content, it's going to be a lot of different stuff going on there, right?
Yeah, I agree. So, and I see that as every opportunity has got to have some kind of CTA associated with it. Might be subtle, you know, you're going to maybe purpose it differently for each path. Are there key ones though you'd want to mark in a workflow that you should know? You've gone through all this, you should have at least a critical point. Or is there anything that you can use that as a, they've seen X number, they've seen a scale of, or anything to any value?
Yeah, so you're kind of still talking about lead scoring and calculating points, right? So that kind of comes down to what tool you're working with, the capabilities that are built in. And the hard part, Monty and I were talking about this the other day, is finding one system that can do lead scoring in all the different places. That becomes the tricky part, because you have to be using one system to easily have the data all there. So if you're using whatever for your email marketing, you could say, all right, this person has opened 3 consecutive emails, give them this lead score, and then have this happen, right?
I guess we all got to become specialists with Zapier,
huh? Or find a platform that does it all. Does anybody have experience working with a platform that can do it all? I feel like that's a really big topic. No one?
When you say do all what?
Do the, like, handle the CRM, handle or in some capacity content marketing, handle the email marketing, handle CRM sales enablement activities.
Well, I mentioned in the past, one of the past meetings, I use SharpSpring, which is a CRM. It also has a social media aspect to it. As far as content, I mean, you can set up campaigns within the platform, and it has UTM parameters you can set up for those campaigns, and you can measure the results of this content initiative. I mean, are you looking at strictly content published on a LinkedIn post, or are you looking at content on landing pages? So when you say content, it's pretty broad. Is it within strictly LinkedIn?
I don't know that. I don't know, John.
Okay.
Yeah, what I do know is, if you're wanting the big picture, as few moving pieces as possible. So SharpSpring, John, you've used SharpSpring and you like it?
That's yeah. I mean, I moved. We moved from Salesforce to SharpSpring about 3 or 4 years ago, and they primarily cater to agencies.
How do you feel like it works, John? How strong is it for CRM?
It's very good at CRM.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do an email sequence where?
Yep. Sure
not an email marketing, but like send someone an email sequence, and if they reply or book a call, the sequence stops?
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
You can do all that stuff. Yep.
Plus email marketing.
Yep.
Interesting. What's the price look like? Can I ask you, John? Because it looks like they don't want to tell me without a form.
Yeah, there's it's about I forget what they have the minimum user base, but basically, once you sign up with them, you sort of become a reseller, and then the minimum amount per account. So like an account would be $250 a month, and then you can sell that as whatever you want. So like I have one client who's a heavy user. I charge them $1,000 a month. But the nice thing about it, once you set up as an agency, then you have access to all this data. They have it. So maybe the client's a Salesforce user, and they don't want to give you, or they could be a Microsoft Dynamics user. You may decide, well, in order for me to track all this, I'm going to set up, I'm going to use SharpSpring. You can give them access to SharpSpring. They can see all the data. It's very flexible. And it can also communicate with Salesforce or Dynamics. It communicates with Salesforce natively, or you can use Zapier to push data into other client platforms, or go into Data Studio, and it has pretty decent reporting. But we connect to Data Studio, and that's how we do all our reporting in Data Studio.
Do you pay per seat?
No, per account.
Per account. And then per account, is there a seat or contact limit that you know of?
No, there's not a limit.
Really? So you could add 10 people to one account, and then have a virtually uncapped quantity of contacts for email marketing and sales and everything?
Yeah, you can. You get to. I don't know what the amounts are, but if you're sending X number of emails per month, it's included within the base package. Once you cross that certain threshold, it adds a little bit more, but it's nothing crazy. I think it's pretty. And what I like about it is they're agency centric.
Yeah, that's cool. That is really. Is there anything in there that would help facilitate something like the team needs to do that's not related to sales and marketing? Like I'm thinking, if everybody needs to do this, right? If everybody on the team needs to share the post, could you notify your team through SharpSpring, or does it not work really like that? Do you think? I mean, it's more project management. I was kind of just curious.
I don't know. I mean, it has an internal, we use Asana for project management. So I really haven't used it from that perspective. So I don't know the answer to your question related to that.
Okay. Totally cool. Yeah, John, I'm gonna check around there. Sorry, my team is apparently working really hard while I'm having fun on a call.
I thought it was pretty interesting that they have a link on their website that says find an agency, and then it gives you the ability to drill down to an agency that I guess uses SharpSpring like John's.
Yeah, you can become like what I'd call a certified partner with them, where you know the platform inside and out. And I'm not one of those certified partners at this point, but the support, what I like about them is I can call the 1-800 number and I can talk to a human being, and it's not an email or a chat exchange back and forth, and that means a lot to me.
Any other holes here in what you feel like you kind of realize, oh, we need this roped into what we do, either can't provide the service, or it's weak, too much to manage? Like our journey was kind of like started here, realized, shoot, we need to also do email here. And then it's like, well, that kind of segues into email marketing because now we have all these people talking by email. And oh, by the way, we should be doing this as well. That's kind of been our journey through needs as it kind of has grown.
I have a question for everybody. Looking at this workflow, how big is a company that can handle this workflow?
Just from my own experience, I mean, this is the kind of stuff we do. So I would say this is probably a 2 minimum 3-person initiative.
Monty,
how many accounts you got?
Monty, are you asking as a service provider or the kind of company that can pay for these services?
As a service provider, but I'd also like to hear what size of company you feel like would be able to pay for this level of service. I should say, how small of a company do you feel like can pay for this level of service?
And I feel like you almost need to go by revenue these days. That's been kind of one thing is you have some companies doing a lot of money with a skeleton crew because of what they sell. But I think that, again, I'm just taking a shot in the dark here. Less than $1 million in annual recurring revenue, not going to happen. Do you think that a mil ARR is too low even? Part of that depends also on what their profit margins are. But
also probably depends on how many players are in their ICP. I mean, if they've got a broad marketplace, and that's a different, part of the equation as well. And I think the other question you asked early on was how much of this is supplemented or supported by various tools of automation, and what's that scale look like in an operational sense?
I feel like if you're going to roll in this piece here, you should be working with a group of people of like minimum 3, just to make it really worth it to be doing this consistently and to have it get seen by more eyeballs. What, again, that I'm just guessing here because it's not been my wheelhouse. What do you guys think as far as for the people that should be involved in this process? 3 minimum? Any thoughts there?
I mean, like 3 salespeople of the client?
Three people who could be in a part of this process. So maybe it's the owner, but the owner is not very actively engaged in sales. But right? I don't know. What do you guys think?
So where I run into issues with the law firms, some of the law firms that I work with, and back to the point of, it's not necessarily the size, whether we're talking about employees or bodies or revenue, but sometimes the solo practitioners are in the millions. They're doing quite fine. They have a very small support team. But where I run into problem with the smaller law firms, even with a high revenue, even if there's just one, founding managing partner, is the control thing. So I mean, they want to know, even if I set something up like this and they get it, the content marketing, if they don't have a team that can handle the content and collaborate with me or my company for the content creation and distribution, all that, then it falls on the managing the founding partner, and they have a control issue for law because there are sensitivities there. I mean, regulatory sensitivities. Yeah. So that becomes too much for them. So this kind of a model would be too much for a small solo practicing law firm, even if they were, bringing in millions, 5 to 10 million. So that's not really a response or answer to your question, but that's one of the issues I come into.
Yeah.
The good thing about this process flow is that there's 3 independent silos that you could sell separately.
Right.
You can break the components out and you can sell them as a la carte, almost.
Yeah.
But to be able to sell them all together as a total package is obviously the most powerful. So the company that can do all three of those things, I feel like is a fairly decent sized company. Not that you're selling to, but that is actually servicing the customer in all three of these areas. So that means that the service that you're actually providing, to the point in terms of how much of it's automated, how much of it is just manual, becomes so important.
Yeah.
And on the content marketing side, so much of that is manual in terms of its creation. So then the question becomes, how much does the company have an internal marketing team? Are they going to work with you jointly on the content creation, or are you doing it all yourself? So there's a lot of variables in there in terms of what you'd set the price of this at. But I'd also love to hear, and I got to run in about 5 minutes, but I also love what you guys feel like if you were going to sell this entire service, what's your monthly cost? What are you selling it for?
In my mind, a big variable there too is how many people are involved in sales enablement. How many sales reps are you working
Let's say we have a minimum of 5, or let's just pin it for the sake of argument. Let's just say you have 5 salespeople.
5 salespeople. I don't see it being less than 10 grand a month. Is that too high? Sorry, I probably should let other people talk. What do you guys think?
Before you start talking about price, shouldn't you figure out man hours required?
Yeah, well, I mean, for that, I mean, I do know man hours required just because we do, well, on this side of things.
There's a lot of variables under that.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
So just for the sake of discussion, I mean, Bob, throw some man hours at it and just say what should be the minimum man hours requirement? I agree by the way, with that 10,000 number
that's actually the number I was thinking too. So
yeah, as a starting point, like as a starting point,
which also defines your company size.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you able to, let's say that a company says, okay, we want more of an a la carte. We're going to handle the content marketing. We want you to handle the other portions of it. And they think they know how to content market. And then you're trying to sew everything together so that we're achieving the KPIs or the results that you've discussed previously and agreed on. I mean, that becomes pretty tricky to pull it apart like this. I mean, I hear that we have variables and all that, but when you start pulling things apart, in the end, you're still accountable for the results or the KPIs.
Yeah, I think that this is where it becomes helpful to think of these, because they are, as totally separate services that need to have overlap. And then if you're an agency owner and you kind of know all the nuts and bolts of what goes into here, labor hours, what you can charge as a standalone versus not on these different components, then you can go into a larger company that feels like their marketing team is crushing it and just sell 1 or 2 things, leave this out. And then once they get in there and they trust you and they see what you're doing and they know that you're smart about it, you can then you have the relationship equity to say, hey, props to your marketing team. They're being consistent, but their reach and engagement needs to be better. Would it make sense for them to offload it? Because we can do that. And we obviously do a good job because you can see what we're doing elsewhere. And then you can do an upsell with your existing client, which everyone knows is way easier than bringing on a new one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, 10K a month. And then this is one thing. Yeah, the email marketing is just a whole nother. I feel like the email marketing is like the bridge in between sales enablement and content marketing. Because what we find in sales enablement is it's such an easier call to action to get someone to say yes to a more high in the funnel call to action. Like more info about what they do, portfolio, comparison, whatever, top of funnel, which goes back to this right here, right? Getting in early, so you're one of the names they remember when it's decision time. It's actually an easier ask to give them something other than let's book a discovery call. I know you're busy, like, is way easier ask on the sales enablement side. And then, but you have to like stay top of mind, and an easy way to automate staying top of mind is by email marketing, So
can I just offer one sort of word of caution, word of preparation, et cetera, is that when you start getting into doing this kind of depth in some of these areas, you are going to want to have some specialists at least on call. They may not have to be there, for routine stuff, but if you know about content and engagement, but for example, if you take on email marketing, you may have to deal with the issue of email deliverability, and that is its own completely specialized domain. If you are doing Facebook ads, and I'm sure the same is true with LinkedIn ads too, compliance and actually dealing with them, not accepting your ads and not letting your ads run is a big thing that you need to have that person. So like I said, you may not have to have them all the time, but you'd better have them in your network, and you'd better figure that into your cost model. Are you going to cover the cost if something comes up, or do you need to make clients aware of it? Just like I said, when it's something this big and complex, there are pieces of this that you're at some point going to need technical specialists.
Yeah. I think also that's a great point, Scott. And additionally, even with this level of complexity, you are going to introduce more account management hours as well. And then you're going to need somebody who is experienced, and they're going to be more expensive project manager. So definitely, did you ever watch the episode of The Office where Michael Scott starts his own paper company? And then in the beginning, he starts undercutting everyone's prices, and then he realizes he's going to go out of business because as he grows, he doesn't have a profitable business model. It's the same thing. Like, you get more large and more complex, all the extra moving pieces, you have bigger costs that you don't expect, and then your prices will probably be higher than what you anticipate. So maybe this is not 10,000, maybe this is more like 15,000, just to make sure that you're profitable. Oh, we were way past the hour. Oh my gosh, look at you guys.